I am heavy bored.
I may say that the male is entirely hostile. No! You know,
Resources.
life, friends, is boring. We must not say so.
All right, we are back with another episode of Heavy Board, and we are continuing the Modern Family series on the podcast with our thesis. And we are joined once again by Erik. Erik, welcome back to Heavy Board.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, of course, bro.
Always love it.
Listeners know Erik now, friend of the pod, friend IRL. And we've covered the first 7 seasons. Go back and listen to that, listeners. And this is season 8, airing from 2016 to 2017. And the premiere aired on September 21st, 2016, my birthday. And I don't know, what were your initial thoughts, dude? Just watching through season 8 here.
Um, it seemed like for Mitch and Cam, I mean, those characters it always sticks out to me. Like, what are they doing with those characters? Because they're so good. And this season, the thing that stuck out is we just don't really see them at work. It's just they're doing these bumbling, like Laurel and Hardy type situations at home, and there's nothing really going on with them. I mean, Mitch, I know he's a lawyer still. I guess he works at a law firm still. I don't even think they mentioned it. Like, I
Right.
really can't um, Cam, I know he's still a coach, and they do mention it a few times, but you don't really see him in that element at all. So I didn't really like what they were doing with those characters. You get a lot more of like Jay being a softie, Phil trying to come to terms, the kids leaving. So yeah, there was a lot of that therapy type stuff that was still continued. Um, and as far as the other kids go, Manny and Luke, they didn't really do much, even though they're about to go to college. Uh, for Haley, and I mean, this seems like something that I guess is what they're going to do with her is they're just going to explore like her different relationships, so she has different boyfriends, and they're kind of doing the same with Alex too.
Yeah.
They gave her they kind of brought her back home in a weird way, to give her something else to do because maybe the college, they couldn't really find any good like college plots, and it's easier to have her around her family. Right, like if she's away at college, how's she going to be interacting with her family? And they can't do every episode with a Skype or through
Yeah.
phone. It's a little weird. So I see why they did that. But yeah, that was pretty much my impression.
For me, I had mixed feelings about this season because again, listeners know this if you've been listening along to the entire series where Erik and I have spent hours talking about Modern Family now on the show. Where season 6 and 7, we were talking about this, that it kind of was the started to fall off a little bit, and that was where the seasons they weren't cleaning up the Emmys anymore. And season 8, I think it started a little weak, but I found myself laughing more than like in season 7, and there were just I don't know if it was my mood or not. Listener, I watched the whole season just like I always do over about 4 or 5 days, leading up to this recording. And like I said, I find it hard to believe that I was in a mood for 4 or 5 days in a row where I couldn't laugh at anything in season 7. I feel like the jokes just weren't as good. But in this one, I started about like maybe 7 episodes in or something. I started like really just like, oh yeah, the gags are back, the kind of classic sitcom stuff. I also think while they still use Manny, and we'll get into this, and he's the voice of the woke kind of stuff for the most part. They kind of return him to his form in like the previous couple seasons where he's this kind of, he's into poetry and he's writing plays and making the family act them out and stuff. I was like, yes, this is what they should have done with like a teenage Manny all along. Like the last couple seasons, they just let him kind of become like a non character where he should have been like the weird one that's like writing these awful plays and making the family like do them and trying to get into art school. All of that could have worked great for him, and it works all right in this season, but he's still kind of the mouthpiece. And I agree with you. Yeah, Mitch and Cam especially because they were such a huge part. They were basically the stars of the show for like those first couple seasons. That couple in particular probably got the most screen time for a while. I mean, I haven't added this up, listeners. Somebody can go do that if they want, but I don't know. Yeah, and they had almost like less screen time, like you said. Yeah, less work life. It was more of these kind of domestic situations and kind of like Eric described it, these kind of Laurel and Hardy situations, like trying to get the beehive out of the house or something. Like, but some of them do have the kind of classic gags. You laugh at certain things, but yeah. And I think I wonder. I don't want to say that this season was like a return to form, but it felt at some point like I don't know, maybe Steve Levitan and Christopher Lloyd were like not, taking it personally, but maybe they were starting to notice, hey, we're not getting nominated like we were before. Like maybe we should return to like what we were doing in those first 5 seasons, which are fantastic sitcom writing, fantastic characters and gags, and the kind of this one. There's a few moments where I noticed the writing, but honestly, considering this was the season where the 2016 like backlash started, and there's some touching on that, I was I remember it being more. So I'm thinking maybe season 9 and 10, 11 are like the ones that get a little crazy than this, maybe at least in terms of like the Trump backlash. And I know that sounds partisan, listeners, but like I think it's if you're being reasonable now, the bipartisan take is that people got like insanely hysterical about the Trump election, and any reasonable person looking around could be like, okay, why is everybody acting so hysterical here? But yeah, so I put this, I was like, oh, this is the Trump backlash season, but I don't know, it just didn't seem like as much backlash as I was expecting. It almost seemed like season 7 was more woke than this season. Although we do have the mention of the word woke for the first time in this season, which I wrote down and we'll bring up here. But yeah, so that's it for that. And I wonder if they went back and rewrote anything post the win. Because, I imagine most of these episodes were written in 2016, leading up to the filming. And then, you have to film it. And I get, they're working through the season as they're doing it. So stuff gets thrown out, stuff gets rewritten, entire episodes change because of budgets, whatever, scheduling. So there's that. I wonder if they added anything. I think maybe the Women's March was probably added in. Like they probably didn't have that written in 2016, but then added it, when it happened in the January of 2017, during the
I mean,
inauguration.
I think the Women's March was announced like right
Oh,
before we won, so it had to be December. So they were probably writing it like they probably had to either add it or kind of change the episode around where they could fit that plot in.
and
But
that
yeah,
was a huge march. Like that was a huge, because I mean, I wasn't living in DC, Maryland at the time, but I had friends still there. And they were talking about like you couldn't use the light rail that day. Like you just couldn't use like any of the, it was just so packed with people. Even people that were trying to go to the protest, they just couldn't get there because the wait lines for the light rail were just, hours and hours. Everything was off schedule. There was no parking, you couldn't get anywhere. The streets were shut down. Like it was just made like DC into like the Baltimore, overlaps a little bit, not really, but just that area was just total chaos for that like 24-hour period, and people were getting pissed. You couldn't move anywhere in the city, you couldn't get around. So it was a huge deal when it happened. Of course, we viewed it through social media and stuff like that. But so yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Women's March clearly had to be included for that reason. But honestly, even the way they handled it, we'll get to this in that episode. I thought like they still kind of threw a lot of like kind of jokes in it, right? That they're all trying to change the tire and they can't do it, like kind of thing. And then like Manny's trying to be like a male feminist and gets rejected, like, and then Luke, who's
yeah.
pretending like gets accepted, like it's just this kind of they're still making a joke out of it still. I wonder because it did get more serious like as the first term of Trump went on until it exploded in the summer of 2020 with the riots and COVID and all of that, and the
Well,
lockdowns.
things were just kind of getting started. Like a lot of this stuff was sort of like just usually in the realm of like the extreme online people, who were really into like sociology and politics. they knew about it, but just your average everyday person didn't. And once Trump was elected, that's when you start seeing like that brought into more mainstream circles. Like a lot of the online journalism started to gain a lot of traction back then, like the independent online journalism, like Jezebel, um, publications like that. So, but
It all
this
ended
was
up
all like
failing within that
working.
5 year period, which is interesting. Jezebel, Slate,
Yeah,
all the ones that just were internet startup. Like, oh, the news is moving online, so these new news companies or new magazines are going online. And they were really big at first, and then they've all been bought out or failed. BuzzFeed, like all of these places have been bought out and failed because just the economics of that model is gone. It's over. Like you can't make money doing that anymore. It's basically in the realm of literary journals. Like you're not making money. You're gonna have more people submitting than you do subscribing and paying for it. And like, yeah, there's just that
yeah,
aspect, but
yeah. But I mean, that was always sort of lurking underneath the surface. Then when Trump was elected, it became more visible. So I think you're seeing, at least with that Women's March episode, that's was kind of the first response to this new thing, and it started to like get out into just everyday people, not just people who are online and part of like niche political circles.
yeah.
Women's March, everyone viewed that, so politics just started taking up more of our lives once that happened. It started creeping into like everyday people's lives, and
Absolutely.
I think yeah, and we'll see that in the later seasons. So it didn't really happen so much here just because I don't know. A lot of people probably just assumed Hillary would win and they wouldn't have to change their show at all. So most of the series remains still like pretty neutral. They still make a lot of jokes, but there is just like in season seven that kind of they can make the racist joke, but they also have to acknowledge that it's a racist joke.
Yeah.
You can make the joke, but you also have to acknowledge it and sort of apologize for it at the same time. Whereas later on, you just don't see those jokes anymore at all. You can't make them.
Yeah, and we've covered this as we've been going. I love that we're doing this season by season because we've talked about how tied up internet culture is in this. And yes, internet culture is separate from wokeness, but there's overlap, and wokeness is like kind of was this huge cultural phenomenon that's kind of dying off now, but is still lingering. And then there's like all like it's a good point you made because it's just like yeah we've seen more internet come into the show as the internet culture is taking over everything and everything's just being filtered through social media, and then we have this election in 2016 that kind of really set everything off in the political direction, and we're just barely coming out of it now. I feel like where everything is so political. And like I said, I wonder if even if they just had some turnover in the writers' room, like maybe they had like a really hardcore true believer in there in season seven, where we kind of talk about how the writing was just kind of shockingly a different tone compared to the previous 5, 6 seasons. This
Well,
one, it felt like the tone was a little bit back. It was still a little different, but it was a little bit more the first 5 seasons tone. At least that's what I was getting when I was watching through, 5, 6 episodes at a time. Uh, but there's still a lot of like little things that we can point to, yeah, that were within the thesis about how this kind of tracks the cultural shift over the course of a decade. And it's great because it landed right at the time in 2009, right before it all started. So we get the before world, we get the during world, and then we get the after in these later seasons here. It just perfectly lines up.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, you were saying about the writers' room. I don't know about the writers' room, but I guess the past couple of seasons I've noticed, and I texted with you about
yes.
this. They had a producer, an executive producer, called named. Sorry if I'm butchering the last name, but it's Valley Chandrasekharian, I believe. And I just did some research into him. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't like. Why did he just pop up?
And he
Uh,
wasn't a producer on the first several seasons. He comes in right around season 6-ish, right? Like right around, yeah.
kind of when the show started to change a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and he wrote a couple. He's written a few episodes every season. He's been there, but he's always on as executive producer. So he always has oversight of kind of the plot and some say in how the direction the show is going. And so I looked him up, and he's married to a woman named Nithya Raman, who is the Democratic Socialist member. Like she's from that party
Oh
on the
yeah.
LA City Council. And I only had heard of her because when all the catalytic converters were getting stolen,
Right.
she was talking about how we should be holding Toyota responsible for having a catalytic converter in such a place where you can steal it, which they don't. It's like it takes a long time
Yeah, you have to
to
saw
remove
that bad
the
boy
yeah.
out. Yeah.
So, and it's just like, yeah, that's her idiocy and her perspective. So, you know, you kind of know a little bit about this guy that's coming in and the type of people that are coming into to oversee the production of the show.
And I think that's it's the conspiracy. People get accused of the conspiracy, right? Like there's, oh, it's Hollywood, right? As if there's and it's always something like this, right? Like obviously Hollywood, especially people that are successful in Hollywood, they're affluent, they're upper middle class, if not upper class. I'm talking people that are like production people instead, not even just the stars that are getting paid millions a year. I'm talking like the lighting guys and stuff. If you're on a show like this, you're a set guy, you're making a great living, a unionized great living for 10 years at least while you're on the show. The headset guy or something, like stuff like that. You're living in the kind of upper middle class to affluent, and it started to really infiltrate these affluent circles first. And then all of a sudden, somebody who's probably wasn't even all that political, all of a sudden is like in this position where the culture's shifting, and all of a sudden politics is a priority, and you have to be thinking with that lens every time there's filming something or the writers are, polishing up a little gag. And then it starts to slowly snowball. And I think like you pointing out this producer is a good point as to maybe how this direction starts. So then if it's only a couple people at first, but then it becomes the norm very quickly here from 2016 onward, 2015 onward. Well, now every show is doing that or has a producer like that, for specifically with this kind of very far, extreme far left socialist ideas. And I think people are they're not willing to talk about how extreme a lot of those far left things that have been normalized over the last decade. Like those are very extreme positions that most people don't want. But we'll get more into this as we get through episodes. So the whole thing with episode one, it starts Tale of Three Cities. And we basically pick up right where we left off, right? Like in previous season where their Dunphys are in New York and Cam and Mitch are in Missouri. Um, for me, the one thing I noticed on this was the Dunphy storyline doesn't make sense for how old the characters are now. Like it seemed like this was a story where the storyline is that the Dunphys are in New York. The parents want to do a cross-country road trip, but they want to get some alone time with the kids. This is a theme on this season, maybe everybody trying to get alone time. Anti-family, maybe for that this season. Uh, and then the kids are going to go just fly back to LA or whatever back home. But the kids are like, oh, we're going to stay an extra day in New York. And then Claire and Phil are like, yeah, we're going to do it too. But they're like keeping it a secret from each other. And I was just thinking, I was like, so Luke is supposed to be the youngest in this. And now in this season 8, he's supposed to be 17, turning 18, about to graduate high school. And his sister's like, Haley's supposed to be like 24. Alex supposed to be like 22-ish, 21-ish. They're all legally allowed to drink, and then all of a sudden the parents are like, "Oh, we can't tell the kids." I'm like, I don't know. This seems like a plot line for when the kids are a little younger, or like your oldest is still in high school or something. You're like, "Oh, we have to get us." I was just thinking, you have adult children, like you can't just take a weekend away if you wanted to. Like you could literally leave them at home. Like they could literally be fine for a few days at home in the summer or whatever. Like,
Yeah, or at least just tell them, oh, hey, your mom and I are just going to do our own thing. You guys do your own thing, and like, you know,
right.
yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, that seemed weird. What I, so Jay and Gloria are in Juarez for a wedding, and this is just like they had him there for like a minute, and then suddenly they had to go back because Gloria's sister found out that she's selling sauce and making money, and she'll want the money. And Manny comes back, like the family comes back, and Manny's suddenly a communist now.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
because he met some woman down there who was a communist. So he thinks he might have a chance to kiss her. Like that's according to him. Um, and then yeah, this convoluted like the sister arrives and she kidnaps Manny. It's it's kind of they it seemed like again they were just kind of throwing whatever at something to make the plot work. And yeah, this was the only thing I found funny was at the end when they were trying to do Father's Day and
Yes.
Jay was sitting down and like he was trying to get his speech, and then the kids and Claire get in an argument because they found out that they both were in New York and didn't tell each other. And then uh Jay gets up and is like, you can't even do Father's Day right. It always has to be a bunch of bickering. And then like Cam comes in or Mitchell comes in with his lipstick on and be like, all right, Cam, kiss me like the sissy I am. And
Yeah.
Jay's like, perfect. Yeah, the ending was good. It was like just because I love it when Jay gets angry, when he gets shit on and he's angry.
Dude,
That always works really well.
and that end credits bits with the sausage tasting because he like wants everybody to eat these sausages, but everybody's bickering, so it ruins it. But at the end, they show like a scene where they're all sitting around and they're like gonna do it for Jay, taste the sausages. And
Yeah.
doesn't somebody ask for like ketchup or something? He's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're done here. And he like gets up.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a great bit. Yeah, Jay. This was a decent Jay season. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, he has them taste sausage like you taste wine. Like notice the bouquet and the aftertaste.
Bouquet.
Um, uh, there's so um, oh yeah. So this is what again, I was just looking at reviews of season 8 online to see what was out there, what the critics were saying at the time. So this is from an online magazine you probably remember called the AV Club.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
They
sort
got
of
bought
like
out by somebody, right? They got bought out and then
oh yeah, probably like all
failed.
these
Yeah, yeah.
places did. And I'm sure like it's up there, like Ain't It Cool News, all those like
Vice.
places that were yeah, Vice,
Vice.
yeah. So here's what they were saying. And overall, the review was like, it's the same Modern Family. It was pretty good, some criticisms, but usually, they liked it. All right. So it says for this first episode. What's worse is that Tale of Three Cities sees Modern Family perpetuating and leaning on stereotypes once again, something that the show has always done to a certain extent, but that felt particularly offensive and uninventive throughout season 7. In the 3 minutes the episode spends catching up with Gloria in Mexico, there are a flurry of reductive jokes based on her Mexican heritage. There's a joke about immigration and digging tunnels, followed by Sonia getting upset about her wedding gift, a machete, because another guest has purchased the same thing. What's the joke here? There really doesn't seem to be one. That's how reductive, harmful stereotypes work. They operate on a false understanding, on an often racist and ignorant simplification of a people and culture. Modern Family has been cutting down Gloria, a genuinely big hearted, complex, intriguing character, for years now, and Tale of Three Cities suggests that there's no end in sight. Those types of complacent, lazy jokes and stereotypes contribute to one of Modern Family's ongoing problems, a mild variation in the quality of storylines within a single episode. So Gloria's storyline, which devolves into a failed kidnapping plot. It's normal in my family, says Gloria, making sure we can all roll our eyes once more distracts from the more comedically rewarding portions of the episode. So they go into like a whole like breaking down racism and
Oh
stereotypes
yeah.
like in the middle of the review of this thing. And this was, again, this is the stuff that just filtered up within a year. Like this is like a CBS story, this is, or something like that. This would be a normal like Washington Post review.
Yeah, and it's completely unfair, I think, given the way those jokes are played out in the show too. Like when they're in Juarez, Manny and Joe and Jay are dressed in like the authentic kind of mariachi band kind of outfits, like the very authentic. And they're the only ones wearing it, because it's just a normal wedding. So like they look like fools wearing this like super like authentic, like heavy, hot,
Mhm.
with the like the hat and the kind of Mexican tuxedo almost, right? With the three
The
amigos. And I
Three
think Jay
Amigos,
even
yeah.
makes a joke about how they look like the three amigos, yeah.
Yeah.
Which that same reviewer would probably call racist.
Oh
But
yeah.
and I just think like things like that too, it just, I mean, that gives a good example of just the cultural shift in terms of Modern Family was like, dude, I bet everybody in that room was probably trying to be sympathetic in that way too. And then it's just never enough, it's never enough because you could always find it if you're making a joke about stereotypes. Well, like you couldn't even talk about it. And it's still kind of that way. I mean, not as bad as it was, but I mean, there's many people, especially in writing circles and things like that. If you start going down a stereotype joke road, there'll be all these people like up, like it's all these,
Yeah.
you said, like it's all these kind of things that was starting. And, I wonder if it doesn't like really infect, like something like a review like that probably really infected the writer's room at a certain point. I wonder if that type of producers and stuff are reading these things, and they were,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they care
Oh
about
yeah, those are
ratings
the
and
people that
yeah,
read alternative journalism, like or then online journalism.
yeah. And all that kind of stuff, the IMDb ratings and things that were becoming more and more prominent to make or break a show.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it used to be people thought stereotypes were funny. They didn't believe them as like, for being true to each person. It was just that was a given. You didn't really believe them like that. But you always thought the stereotype was funny. And now it's been like, oh, okay, no, actually stereotypes lead to a larger racial problem in society.
right.
And that's why you can't even laugh at stereotypes. You can't stereotype anyone anymore.
Or use them as like a jumping off point for a little misunderstanding in a sitcom or something.
Mhm.
And again, it's not like it was the first time where they used like, Gloria's kind of Colombian heritage as like she's done things, like she's seen some things like when they kill that rat in like season 3 or whatever, and she cuts the
Oh
head
yeah.
off of it with a shovel, and
And
they're
the
like
review
scared of
said,
her. Yeah.
yeah, the review said like, yeah, this is they've always done that, and which means that even from season one, when they really loved it, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, shouldn't be making that joke.
Yeah. Or like when they run over the Christmas tree or whatever, when she's like with Luke or whatever, and this is like season 2 or 3, I think, and she's like, "Did we just hit something?" She's like, "Don't look back, never look back," and she just like speeds up and keeps going, like they hit something in the
Yeah,
road, like just little things like that. Part to make her character, right? She's got this kind of shady background. She casually mentions all the time that like she would shoot guns or something, or like there was like, a fight breaking out at some wedding or and this is the thing too, where everybody pretends that like half of South America isn't like, a cartel state, essentially, like where it's so corrupt that like everybody's on the cartel payroll. At least, not every country in middle, Central and South America, obviously, listeners, but a lot of them, right, especially the economically poor ones like Colombia or something, are very much being held back because they're run by this kind of dictatorship, cartel dictatorship, where things like that. Also, I mean, people forget about this too, where I believe it was Mexico in like the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Wasn't there like an epidemic of kidnappings happening in like Juarez and Mexico City and stuff like that? Like an epidemic of rich people, especially American tourists and stuff, getting like kidnapped. And held for ransom money, and like that was just a very common practice. It used to be something that like the US government would advise people when they're touring, being tourists in like Mexico, or the beach areas, and all those areas that people vacation to regularly and where all the resorts are that people go to all the time. And they're usually very safe nowadays and all of that, but like at the time there was a risk. They were like, be careful when you go into the cities and stuff. Like if they find out you're American and you have money or blah, 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 like that was a very real thing. So they're making a joke out of something that probably isn't as true as it is nowadays. Not Mexico's a little bit more stable in terms of the government and things like that. But it's still, there's a lot of evidence that it's, cartel run in a lot of those instances. Basically they come to your house and if you don't get on board, they kill you and your family. So most people get on board. Like if you're in that situation, most people are going to say yes. Principles go out the window. So even if you're like, a Bernie Sanders style person in the government in Mexico, if somebody, is breaking into your house and threatening you with like killing your entire family, if you don't get on board, I mean, come on. Everybody likes to pretend that they like have stand by their principles and just get shot in their bed that night. But no, most people aren't. They're going to say yes, and they're going to do whatever they ask.
Yeah.
The kind of monopoly on violence in that way. But yeah, okay. So the only things I noticed in that were, yeah, the kind of the plot line. Uh, Jay's sausages bit was my favorite part. Yeah. And then I can't even remember what happened with Cam and Mitch in their kind of Missouri.
Mitch accidentally or is blamed for killing Cam's grandmother,
Oh, right.
and
Yeah.
they have to, yeah. So the family kind of views him as suspicious, and when they get back, um, I guess the grandmother left things for like Lily and Mitch,
Oh,
forever,
right.
and then
Mitch's is like some
Nick,
sissy thing.
yeah, he gets the lipstick. But and
He
yeah,
gave Mitch Lily's card and it says something like, I didn't like you at first, but you seem to make my grandson happy. So here, have this. You might have use of it. It's like an Oriental fan from like,
yeah.
like 1950s or something. And like jade and stuff, like, yeah, like Chinese like characters on it and stuff. And they gave it to like the Asian girl. It's just funny because yeah, you could read it for Lily or you could read it for Mitch, and it made it a great bit. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
That was again using that kind of stereotype about yeah, some old person in Missouri, having their grandson being gay or whatever, and making a great kind of funny bit that we can all laugh at through that kind of stereotype. So again, they notice they don't talk about those stereotypes. It's
Yeah.
only the stereotypes about, the Hispanic characters or something or the gay characters. It's never the one about, yeah, the stereotype of the white racist or something.
Yeah.
That's fine, but
Yeah,
that's not
no,
offensive.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of their thesis is like, yeah, like you can be racist to white people and that's okay because we're the oppressors for some reason. Yeah.
Um, and then we have a stereotypical day for episode 2, and that's the one with yeah, Manny's openly communist because he's trying to get with a communist girl after he's been in Mexico or Colombia or whatever. Um, this is the tranny thing with
Yeah.
Tina becoming Tom, one of Lily's little fourth grade friends, because Lily's supposed to be in fourth grade at this time, like 9 years old or whatever. Her little friend, Tina, is becoming Tom. And that's actually funny because then you have the gay guys in that role trying really hard not to seem bigoted, but like everything they say comes off as like bigoted about it when you look at it. And it's like, okay, the writers understand using that new trans thing. But again, it's this kind of all of a sudden everywhere. Like trannies are the most important trannies. We have to talk about the genocide. We have to talk about all that, like this kind of all of a sudden, and it was really tied into this too, dude. It was really tied into the, I mean, everybody that was alive and online during this time knows what we're talking about, but all of a sudden it was just, oh, this 9-year-old, this 9-year-old girl's now Tom all of a sudden. And if you're hearing this, it's because you are listening to the free public feed of Heavy Board. To get complete, uncensored, uninterrupted, full access to this podcast, become a subscriber at patreon.com/heavyboard. That's right, Heavy Board is made possible by subscribers like you. For less than 1 cup of coffee per month, you will receive private access to uncensored, full-length episodes, Jerk Shop, heavy bonus content, subscribers only AMA episodes, bonus extended interviews, and more. Come join the conversation today at patreon.com/heavyboard.